Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. I'd like to start with the first of what I think will be a series of interesting conversations over the next um, couple of weeks. Over the past 10 days, I covered um, a new series. I themed the series the challenge to succeed for men. And I focused specifically on the burden of performance that men must endure and how to ensure that men can find success by removing obstacles and being aware of the obstacles that could be in their way. Now, usually my conversations often come from either interactions with people or requests, sometimes from some of the people who subscribe, who provide me with questions or topic suggestions, or ask for my opinions about certain issues, social, relational, um, or similar. Uh, the sessions that I will do over the next few weeks, really came to me in a conversation that I had yesterday. Like most of my interactions with men, I tend to meet them either when I'm out and about, in the gym, at social events, social interactions, or sometimes electronically or online. Now, let me perhaps set the scene, and so that you can understand why I will be choosing a particular theme going forward. I walked into the gym, said hello to someone that I usually see, someone I think I am fond of, and someone who I think is got his head straight. Usually, when I walk into a gym, uh, I don't necessarily connect with everyone. That is a natural thing. You say hello to many people. You are friendly with many people, um, but you're not friends with everyone. And often you find yourself having a natural disposition and inclination to speak to certain people, either because of their temperament, their mannerism, either because of their work ethic, either because of how perhaps they carry themselves, or sometimes how they speak or approach you. So I walk into the gym, and here is the young man who I regularly speak with, and I think highly of him, despite not knowing him. He's not a friend. To use the word acquaintance will be perhaps a push, but someone I see regularly. And so I asked, after we had exchanged pleasantries, now we hadn't seen each other for weeks, and so I asked, is there anything new with you? And he said, as a matter of fact, there is. Long story short, he said, well, he's met someone. And I said, great, interested. Who is she? And he explained that he had started coming to the gym because he had fallen out with a girlfriend he had previously. And as a way of getting past the hurts, apparently, he was hurt from the relationship, but as a way of getting past the hurts, he started coming to the gym, and he said he had found it to be quite useful, granted. And he says, well, he's met this new person and it feels incredible. Chemistry is there. He's been treated very well. And I said, tell me more about her. Now, to set to get your picture, the pictures clear in your mind, I'm speaking about a young man who is, say, 20, 21 at best, but 20, 21, somewhere in between. So he said to me, well, the girl I'm seeing, I spent the last week with her. She lives on her own. She's 18. And I thought to myself, interesting. I didn't ask more questions. I said, okay. And he says, they spent the whole week together and it's been great. He then goes on to say that she's a mother. She has a child. And I said, interesting, okay. And he says, well, she has two children. Now my senses, obviously, my cautionary senses start to signal something is wrong. And I said, Okay, by how many fathers? And he said, 2 fathers. And I said, okay. When did she have her first child? He said, 16. When did she have a second child? And he said, 18. And I said, run. And he was stunned by my response. I said to him, and I think this is important for a lot of young men, and this will form the basis of the sessions I do going forward. I am going to come very hard down on boys. I'm going to say a few things that I should not need to say if fathers were doing what they should be doing with their sons. I am going to connect the series over the next few sessions with conversations that I have had and videos that I have done about how our fathers have failed us, the sexual marketplace, how to navigate the sexual marketplace, the importance of staying focused as a man. I'll connect several topics because I think this is so important. Generally speaking, when it comes to other people's affairs, I tend not to be emotionally involved or connected. But I could see, because I have met this young man many a times, that he had potential. He was hardworking. As a matter of fact, my initial experience of him was there were times he would walk into the gym with his work clothes. It was obvious he did some form of blue collar job, some labor, but he would come in wearing the boots and the bottoms. And I thought, this is great, because what you're seeing here is someone who is dedicated. Rather than go home and expose himself to the temptation of sitting down on the couch and then not coming to train, he simply said, I'm going to the gym after work so I can get it done, then I can go home. And from day one, he worked very hard, trained hard, and I thought it was fascinating. Great potential. We spoke with him a couple of times. I understand his career aspirations, but I thought, it's really lovely to see young men, particularly young men who most people tend not to write much about or believe that they have a future. It's useful to see a man who is actually on his grind, focused and working very hard and doing very long hours. Very impressive. Going back to the story from the conversation yesterday, I asked him a simple question. I said, why? And he was stunned by the question. He says, what do you mean? I said, I don't know you well enough, but I know you as an acquaintance, and I've known you for a short period of time to be able to want to say as follows. I think you should run. Don't walk away from the relationship, but run. You have a great future ahead of you, but you are about to sacrifice who you could be, the future you could have, for sex and a relationship. There was everything wrong with this. In any case, I very briefly said, you're doing things that are very unnatural, even in the animal kingdom. It's very unnatural. You're also doing things out of sequence. You're doing things that will sabotage your success. You're doing things that illustrate that you have a lack of self-esteem, a self-confidence, self-concept, self-worth. You're not doing things in the right order. And that is what I will try and weave into the sessions that go forward, which is success is about doing things in the right order. Now, if I said to you, Johnny bit the dog, but I also twisted the sentence and I said, the dog bit Johnny. Same participants, as a matter of fact, same words, but the sequence is different. And the sequence, when you change it, it alters the outcome. In the first, it might have been an experience, a weird experience for both parties, Johnny and the dog. And in the second, it may have been a horrifying experience, especially for Johnny. When we do things out of order as men, we make mistakes. When we make mistakes, some of those mistakes cannot be corrected. Now let me expand, because I think I cannot cover the entire conversation. A few things to keep in mind. Single mother. Not even single mother. Baby mama. Number 2, self-concept and self-esteem. or a man of low self-concept or self-esteem. Number 3, out of order. I said to him a few additional things. I said, why? And he was shocked by the question, because he had taken on this, what I call the Saviour's paradox. He was rationalizing in trying to say, well, someone has to do that. Someone has to be there as a role model for the children. Now, genuinely, my theological training says that we are supposed to look after the orphans and the widows. And so I put those two into a different camp. I said to him, well, let me put the woman aside and let me speak to you as a man. I can speak about her and I can tell you all the reasons why it is wrong. But let me speak to you and about you. I said, if someone came to me and said, there's a young man and he's 20, going on 21, and he's met a girl and she's 18, and at 18 she has 2 children by 2 different men, and both relationships that she had with those men, she produced and reproduced for them without the benefit of marriage. She gave the highest honor she could give anyone, freely, without qualification. I said, what would be your conclusion about that picture? About a man who would choose a woman like that, and who was actually thinking about settling down with her for the long term. He said he didn't know. I said, well, the answer would be, this is a man who either lacks a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-identity, self-esteem, a man who doesn't understand his purpose, doesn't have a goal for the future, a man perhaps who's not focused, a man who doesn't understand what it means to be disciplined. But more importantly, he could also be a man who has come from a broken family where there's been no father, no one guiding him about making important life decisions. So when it comes to dating, his lack of self-esteem, he has no game, he has no frame, he has no confidence, obviously he has no resources. So on the balance of power, a concept I talk about regularly, is at the lowest. But the younger a man is, you don't have resources, but what you should have is mastery of the game. So you should have some, either from sports, success, education, or career, but you should have a sense of your manhood and who you are. And definitely you should have a sense of what your potential could be. And therefore you choose who you pair bond with on that basis, because you understand your future. You don't judge yourself based on where you are. You judge yourself based on who you know you can become. And if you chose a woman, and here is another key important part, we put women into a hierarchy. A man who goes and chooses the woman at the bottom of the barrel ignores an attractive, young, feminine, fit virgin who has chastity and purity, youth and beauty. And then you come all the way down, a woman who has a high sexual marketplace value, high reproductive fertility value, a high non-sexual marketplace value, and a woman who has a high lady value or ladylike value. You come all the way down to a woman who is much older, no kids. You come down to a woman who was either, number 1, married, then divorced with a child, married, widowed with a child, unmarried, with 1 child by 1 man, unmarried, with multiple children by multiple men. That is the bottom of the barrel. A young man at 20 who chooses the woman at the bottom of the barrel is signifying a number of things. That he does not have what it takes to ask or demand for something higher than what he is able to attract. In other words, we attract who we are. Water seeks its own level. And if a man came to me and says, well, at 18, I'm trying to find and meet a woman who is 18 years, but the 18-year-old girl that I have met has 2 children from 2 different men within a space of 2 years, in both instances, did not require a commitment of marriage. The fathers are deadbeats. A question I asked was, has she been to therapy? Has she been to counseling? No. So she's done nothing to show that she's trying to correct the mistakes of her past. The indication is she's come from a poor family. She's come from a family where she hasn't seen good behaviors relationally modeled. She's not seen boundary enforcement and boundary setting. So she doesn't actually understand how to be around men. Put in a very, very mild way. I don't care what you think about this. I'll be talking about someone who will be called an S. Is that the person you're choosing to call a mate, to pair bond with? Now, what was the most striking was he said he had spent a week with the girl and the children. Obviously, she doesn't work, as he confirmed. And I thought to myself, what kind of man would choose a woman to be emotionally involved with? A woman who has two children, who brings in a stranger into her house, and the stranger is having sex in that house while the two children are there. What kind of man would choose a woman like that? Obviously, from a morality perspective, she cannot distinguish between good and what isn't good. From a value judgment perspective, she lacks the ability to make good decisions, and this is who you've chosen. Now, as I spoke with this guy, I could see that he was struggling to come to the realization, because perhaps it was the first time someone had actually said to him, "You're making a wrong decision." So I said to him, think about this, and this is what I would say to young men. I said to him, have you ever been in a skyscraper, a tall building, like a 50-story building? Now, I designed and I built some of those buildings many years ago, and it was fascinating. Assuming yourself to be in the lobby of the ground floor, and you're looking out of the lobby and you can see the street. From the lobby, you can see the street and you can see the cars. And that is we call your line of sight. That's all you can see. One car behind another car behind another car, and that's all you can see. If I were to take you into the elevator and I took you up to level 10, and level 10, if you looked out of the window, now you can see much more, not just the streets, but some of the adjacent streets. Some of the adjacent streets, but not all the cars on the adjacent streets. If I took you up to the 50th floor, from the 50th floor, you can see most of the city. You can see so distinctively that if I was to ask you, how can I get from A to B? You can very clearly, by looking out of the window, say, well, you turn left on that corner, there is road traffic in that corner, avoid that, go down the road, take the next right, and take the next left. Why? You can see a lot further and clearer. On the ground floor, there are obstacles in your way. It's the same concept with regards to age amongst men. Wisdom sometimes comes with time. But on a general basis, if you keep everything equal, a man who is 21 is still a baby, is still a child. And therefore, if you're making important decisions and heavy decisions without the guidance of people who are much older, who can see much further, you will make mistakes. The sessions I did previously, I mentioned an important concept about pride and how we self-sabotage our success because we are too prideful to accept the wisdom and the lived experiences of other people, both their successes or their failures. I said to him, well, you want to be successful. You listen to people who have been successful. But if you also want to be successful, you listen to people who have failed and do the opposite of what they did. I said to him, you're going to fail, not just in a relationship, but what she's looking for is stability and structure. And the moment I met you, I could see that you had the mannerisms for such. What is going to happen is you're going to move into fatherhood very quickly. That will force you into a place of responsibility. And you will throw away your goals, your vision, your potential, opportunities. I said to him, at this age, you should be free to travel, seek opportunities, not be tied down like a tree in a particular soil, because you will find people and meet people who say to you, are you happy to come and join us in this adventure? 20 is way too young. As a matter of fact, at 20, and this usually happens to people who do not go to college. Those who go to college have the benefit and the opportunity to go into a structural process for 4 or 5 years. So from 18 to 22, you have to be in college. And that disciplines you to delay certain decisions such as fatherhood. Those who unfortunately choose not to go to college and who go into apprenticeship and work for some reason, are forced into manhood too young, too early, and they're trying to emulate men who are 30, 40, or 50. Why? Because they've worked for 2 years, they've got a car, and they're thinking the only way I can claim that I'm successful is if I have something that is stable, like a relationship. I then gave him an analogy which I like to leave with you, but it came in the form of a question. I said, women are like cars. We get the cars that we can afford to drive. And whatever car you drive, it is simply because you can't afford something better, generally speaking. And you have a choice. You can either buy a car or you can lease a car. But I said to him, well, if I came to you and I asked you a simple question, there are 2 cars. They're the same model, same age, same type. One of them has had 2 accidents. It's been written off, technically speaking, but it's being sold and it has a very high mileage. And the other car never had an accident, has a much lower mileage. Which of the 2 cars would you choose? And I saw him thinking. But what was the sad part of the interaction wasn't that he was thinking from a logical perspective. He was thinking from an emotional perspective. And I said to him, never mind. He was confused. It took a while before he said, yes, I'll go with the car that hasn't been in an accident, because he couldn't separate himself from the fact that he was emotionally involved with someone who, based on the analogy, was a wrong purchase, was a wrong deal. So in the sessions that follow, I intend to go back to the basics, because I think there is so much that we are getting wrong as a society. Fathers are failing their sons. At 20, a boy should have a community of older men around him, like I did, advising and guiding them on making the right decisions. Now, this comes at the back of an interaction I had with someone else, I think 4 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, and this was like a shock. Someone said to me, well, my brother has, I asked about the brother, and they said, well, my brother he's moving with his girlfriend. I said, oh, interesting. Similar age. But the next sentence was, forgive me, let me sort this out. The next sentence was so powerful, it left me speechless. They said to me, my brother has moved in with his girlfriend, and she has 6 kids. And I said, 6 kids? They said, yes. I said, by how many men? 6 men. And I was speechless for a few seconds. And I said, you're joking. You're trying to evoke an emotional response or reaction from me, for which I wouldn't give it to you. And later down the line, they said, it's true. And I had an independent party verify that statement. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? How does a young man who is in his 20s, early 20s, choose a woman who has 6 children by 6 different men and has moved in with her and is acting as a stepfather? I'll go back to the first story. I said to the man, can you understand? The girl you're actually with is not looking for a partner. She's looking for a stepfather first, before a lover. She's looking for someone stable. In the second example, 6 children, the girl is looking for a stepfather. But I said to the guy, the first story, she's not just looking for a stepfather, she's looking for a sucker. Most young men are suckers. Why? Because many of us were not trained or raised or guided or provided with the right support system, infrastructure, both emotionally and physically, to enable us to make the right decisions. Young men are making decisions that are very important, without any support network. I said to this young man, before I moved on to doing my workout, I said, do you understand that the family court system in the UK is so pernicious that if those children spend more than 6 months with you, recognizing that they're both less than 2 years old, approximately, the oldest, and the other still very young, or 2 and 4, whatever their ages might be, if they spend more than 6 months with you and they bond with you, she can say to the family courts that they've come to see you as their fathers, and you'll be responsible for 216 monthly payments for the next 18 years. I said, at your wage, let me assume £36,000. You would have to pay 10% gross on child support. That's roughly £300 per month. So for 2 children, £600 per month. I said to him, if you took that £600 and you placed that £600 in a low-cost index fund for the next 18 years or 20 years, and you just left it there and it compounded at 10% annually over the 18-year period, you would be at least on your way towards becoming a millionaire, at least worth more than £500,000. If you left the money there until 25 years, you'll be pushing towards £250,000 in net worth. I said to him, this is not just an emotional decision. It is a financial transaction and a financial decision. You don't evaluate this simply based on the fact that she sucks a good dick or makes you feel good. The reason she's doing all of that is because she wants you to nest. And the moment she gets her claws into you, you're done. I did say to him as I closed, I said, I don't care what you're doing, son. Just make sure you're wearing condoms. And never take condoms that she gives to you. Because I wouldn't be surprised if she puts a hole in those condoms. Because if she gets pregnant, she's going to keep the baby. And she knows that you will stay because you're a good man. Now, let me stop for now. In the sessions that follow next week, starting Monday, I am going to go through some very, very, very sensitive topics. I will not hold back. My focus is to make sure that I can get men on the right track. Now, if I piss some of you off along the way, just take a number, get on in the line. And if I am able to educate and inspire some of you not to make foolish, stupid mistakes, then I think I've done my job. If one person from the many of you who listens to or was able to come across this video can avoid making a mistake, then I think I've done a good job. And I've done the job that I actually wanted to do. Now, I hope that's been useful.